Some places are isolated for a reason. Some structures stand alone, not because of geography, but because of what happened within their walls. Widow's Point Lighthouse, located 18 miles off the coast of Maine, is one such place. In the autumn of 1987, a man named Thomas Merrick accepted a position as the lighthouse keeper for what was supposed to be a 6-month assignment. He was 42 years old, recently divorced, and looking for solitude. What he found instead was something that would ensure no one would ever accept that position again. This is the story of Thomas Merrick's last days, pieced together from his journal entries, Coast Guard reports, and the testimony of the only person who saw him after he arrived at Widow's Point. What you're about to hear will disturb you. It should. Before we begin, if you're a fan of horror stories and mysterious disappearances, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. This channel brings you the most chilling tales from the darkest corners of history every single week. Drop a comment below telling me what scares you most about lighthouses, and if you make it to the end of this story, let me know by typing Widow's Point in the comments. Now let's begin. October 15th, 1987. Thomas Merrick's journal begins simply enough. Day 1. Arrived at Widow's Point via Coast Guard vessel at 14 hours. The boat captain, a man named Sullivan, seemed eager to leave. He barely helped me with my supplies before he was back on his boat. When I asked him about the previous keeper, a man named Harold Gaines, Sullivan just shook his head and said, "He didn't last 2 weeks." I asked why. Sullivan looked at the lighthouse, then back at me and said, "You'll see." Then he left. Thomas describes the lighthouse in detail. Built in 1873, it stood 80 feet tall, constructed of grey stone that had darkened over the decades from sea spray and weather. The island itself was barely 2 acres of jagged rock, with no trees, no shelter except the lighthouse and its attached keeper's quarters. Thomas spent his first afternoon familiarizing himself with the lighthouse. The keeper's quarters were spartanly furnished: a bed, a small kitchen, a desk, a radio for emergencies, and shelves of logs dating back decades. The lighthouse mechanism itself was automated now, but someone still needed to be present for maintenance and monitoring. That first night, Thomas wrote, "The wind here is constant. It doesn't howl, it whispers. That's the only way I can describe it, like dozens of voices just below the threshold of understanding. I checked the windows twice to make sure they were sealed. They are. The sound must be an acoustic trick of the rocks and the structure. Still, it's unsettling." Found something odd. In the back of the supply closet, someone scratched words into the wall. "Don't look, don't look, don't look," repeated maybe 50 times. I covered it with a shelf, probably just a previous keeper losing their mind from isolation. I won't. On his second day, Thomas began reading through the previous keeper's logs. This was standard, understanding what maintenance had been done, what issues to watch for. But Harold Gaines's logs became increasingly strange. The first 2 weeks were normal, then, October 9th, 1987. Something moved in the water tonight. Too large to be a whale, wrong shape, wrong movement. October 11th. The whispering is getting louder. I can almost make out words. I think it's saying my name. October 12th. Requested early departure. Coast Guard says next supply run isn't for another week. I don't think I can make it. October 13th. It came up the stairs last night. I heard it. I locked the door and pushed the dresser against it. Whatever it is, it left scratches on the door, deep scratches. In the morning they were gone. Was I dreaming? That was Harold Gaines's last entry. He'd been evacuated on October 14th, the day before Thomas arrived, citing a medical emergency. The logs provided no further details. Thomas's 4th day began normally enough. He performed his maintenance checks, cleaned the lens, tested the radio. But as he worked in the lamp room at the top of the lighthouse, he noticed something. "There's something in the water. About 200 yards north. It looks like a person, but they're just floating there, not moving. I watched for 20 minutes. The waves move around them, but they stay perfectly still. I grabbed the binoculars. It's not a person. It looks like a person. The shape is right. But when I focused the binoculars, I couldn't make out any features. Just a dark, human-shaped form floating upright in the water. Its head was turned toward the lighthouse, toward me. I watched it for an hour. It didn't move, didn't bob with the waves, just watched. Then, as the sun started setting, it sank beneath the water. Not gradually, just straight down, like something pulled it under. That night, Thomas was awakened by knocking. 3:47 a.m. Something is knocking on the door. Not the front door. The door at the base of the lighthouse tower. The door that leads from my quarters into the lighthouse itself. Slow, deliberate knocks. 3 at a time. Pause. 3 more. I'm sitting at my desk with the light on, writing this. The knocking stopped 5 minutes ago. I'm not opening that door. I'm not. 4:15 a.m. It started again. But this time it's coming from higher up. Like whatever is knocking is climbing the stairs inside the tower. But I locked that door. I know I locked it. The knocking reached the top of the lighthouse. The lamp room. Then it stopped. I can hear scratching, like nails on stone. It's circling the lamp room. I can track it by the sound. Around and around and around. 5:30 a.m. It stopped when the sun came up. Just stopped mid-scratch and then nothing. Silence except for the wind. I went upstairs to check. The door to the lamp room was locked from the inside, just as I'd left it. No scratches on the walls. No sign anything was there. But I heard it. I know I heard it. On day 6, Thomas attempted to radio the Coast Guard. I told them I needed to leave. The man on the radio, different from Sullivan, asked if there was an emergency. I tried to explain. I told him about the sounds, about the figure in the water. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Is this Merrick?" I said yes. He said, "You're the 3rd keeper this year. The lighthouse still needs to be manned. We can't evacuate you for sounds." I asked about Gaines. He said, "Gaines had a mental health crisis." "Are you having a mental health crisis, Mr. Merrick?" I said no. He told me the next supply run would be in 3 weeks. Then he signed off. I'm not crazy. Something is wrong with this place. Day 7 brought a new discovery. I was walking around the island this morning trying to clear my head. On the eastern shore there's a tidal pool. I'd seen it before but never paid much attention. Today I looked closer. There are bones in the pool, human bones, a skull, ribs, what looks like an arm. They're old, covered in algae and barnacles. They must have been there for decades. But here's what made me sick. The skull is facing up, out of the water, even though it should have rolled or been moved by the tide. It's positioned, deliberately positioned, and carved into the rock beside it are words, "He watches from below." That night, Thomas made a decision. I need to understand what's happening. In the supply closet I found diving equipment. It's old, probably hasn't been used in 20 years, but it looks functional. Tomorrow, when there's light, I'm going down. I need to see what's below this place. Day 8, afternoon. I went down. The water around the island is surprisingly deep, drops off quickly to maybe 80 feet. The visibility was poor, maybe 15 feet. The rocks continue down, forming a kind of underwater cliff. I found something at 60 feet, an opening, a cave entrance. It was huge, easily 20 feet across, and it wasn't natural. The edges were too smooth, too regular. This was carved. Something made this. I could feel current coming from inside, not just water movement, steady current, like breathing, in and out, in and out. I didn't go inside, I couldn't. Not because I was afraid, though I was, but because when I shined my light into that opening, something shined back. 2 lights, reflecting, like eyes, massive eyes. I surfaced as fast as I safely could. When I got back to my quarters, I found wet footprints, leading from the water, to my door, up to my door, but not away. Whatever made them is still inside. I'm writing this from the lamp room. I've locked myself in. It's the highest point, the farthest from the water. I pushed everything I could against the door. It's night now. The knocking started an hour ago, but it's different this time. It's not knocking, it's pounding. Whatever is down there, it's angry that I saw it. The pounding stopped. Now I hear footsteps, heavy, wet, coming up the stairs, slow, deliberate. It knows I'm here. It's taking its time. It's outside the door. I can see water seeping under it. Black water. It smells like death, like the ocean floor. The doorknob is turning. I pushed a filing cabinet against it, but the doorknob is still turning. The turning stopped. Now there's just breathing. I can hear it breathing. It sounds like waves, like the ocean is breathing. It spoke. I don't know how, but it spoke. Not in English, not in any language, but I understood it. It said, "You looked. Everyone who looks belongs to me." Thomas Merrick's journal entries end there, but the story doesn't. 3 days later, when Thomas failed to respond to radio checks, the Coast Guard sent a crew to Widow's Point. They found the lighthouse functioning normally. The keeper's quarters were empty. Thomas's belongings were there, his clothes, his radio, his supplies. His journal was found in the lamp room, along with a considerable amount of water damage to the floor. But Thomas was gone. The investigation revealed something interesting. Widow's Point Lighthouse had a reputation. In its 114-year history, 15 lighthouse keepers had disappeared. Not quit, disappeared, vanished without a trace. The lighthouse service had kept this quiet, marking the incidents as desertions or accidents. The investigative team found more. In the archives, they discovered references to the island's original name, Dagon's Watch. Native tribes had avoided it, claiming it was sacred to something that lived in the deep water. The lighthouse was built despite protests. Every disappearance followed the same pattern. The keeper would report strange sounds, strange sightings. They would become increasingly isolated and paranoid. They would request evacuation. They would be denied. Then they would vanish, leaving no evidence of where they'd gone. Reading through historical logs, the investigative team found repeated references to the breathing, the watching, the one below. These references dated back to 1873, to the very first keeper, a man named Josiah Crane. Crane's final log entry, written in 1874, read, "It came from the water when we built this place. We woke it with our hammers and our drills. We pierced its home. Now it wants tribute. It will have tribute. I am the first. I will not be the last." Josiah Crane's body was never found. After Thomas Merrick's disappearance, the Coast Guard made a decision. Widow's Point Lighthouse would be fully automated. No more keepers. The equipment was upgraded, cameras installed, and the keepers' quarters were sealed. But the cameras showed something interesting. On certain nights, particularly during storms, they would catch glimpses of movement. A figure on the rocks, a shape in the water. The footage was always unclear. Was it a person, an animal, a trick of the light? And sometimes on the audio feed you could hear it. Knocking, 3 knocks. Pause, 3 more. The Coast Guard classified the footage as equipment malfunction. In 2003, 16 years after Thomas disappeared, a research team arrived at Widow's Point. They were marine biologists studying seal populations. They had permission to camp on the island for 3 days. On their second night, one of the researchers, Dr. Sarah Chen, woke to find her tent filling with water. Not rain, seawater, rising from beneath her tent floor. She scrambled outside and found the other tents also flooding. Then she saw it. Standing at the water's edge, perfectly still, was a figure, humanoid but wrong, too tall, maybe 8 feet. Its skin glistened, dark and slick. Its eyes reflected her flashlight like an animal's, but they were positioned too high on its head. Its arms were too long, hanging past where its knees should be. It watched her for several seconds. Then it spoke, not with a mouth she could see, but she heard it nonetheless. It said one word: return. Dr. Chen and her team evacuated immediately. She later described the encounter in her official report, though she was strongly discouraged from publishing it. The Coast Guard's official statement called it a seal and attributed Dr. Chen's description to stress and poor visibility. But Dr. Chen knows what she saw. She's never been back to Widow's Point. She never will. Today, Widow's Point Lighthouse still stands, still functions. The beacon still turns, warning ships away from the rocks. The automated systems still report back to the Coast Guard station on the mainland. And sometimes those reports include anomalies. Pressure sensors detecting weight on stairs when no one is there. Motion detectors triggering in sealed rooms. Temperature drops of 30 degrees in seconds. The Coast Guard responds to these anomalies the same way every time. Equipment malfunction. Recalibration needed. Nothing more. But the fishermen who work these waters know better. They give Widow's Point a wide berth. They don't fish near it. They don't even look at it when they pass. Because sometimes, if you look at Widow's Point at just the right time, during just the right conditions, you can see figures on the rocks, standing still, watching, waiting. And if you look very carefully, you might notice they're not standing. They're floating, just slightly above the rocks, hovering. The fishermen have a saying: don't look at Widow's Point, and if you do, don't look away too quick. It considers that rude. Thomas Merrick's sister, Ellen, has never stopped looking for answers. She hired private investigators. She sued the Coast Guard for access to records. She spent 37 years trying to find out what happened to her brother. In 2024, she finally received a package. No return address. Inside was a waterproof case. Inside the case was a journal. Thomas's journal. The real one, not the edited version released by the Coast Guard. The final entries, the ones the Coast Guard never made public, were written in the margins, in increasingly frantic handwriting. It's not one thing. It's many. They've been here longer than the lighthouse, longer than humans. They were here before. The island is theirs. The water is theirs. We built on sacred ground, and now they collect tribute. I understand now. Everyone who comes here, we're marked, we're chosen. We looked where we shouldn't have looked. We saw what shouldn't be seen. And now we belong to them. If you're reading this, stay away from Widow's Point. Stay away from the water. It watches. It always watches. And once it sees you, it never stops watching. The final page contained just 4 words, written over and over until the pen tore through the paper. Don't look, 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 don't look. There are places in this world that exist between what we know and what we fear. Places where the rules are different, where things older than human understanding still hold dominion. Widow's Point is one of those places. 15 keepers disappeared over 114 years. 15 people who looked where they shouldn't have, who saw what lived beneath, who learned too late that some jobs aren't worth any amount of money. Some isolation isn't peaceful, it's predatory. The lighthouse still stands, still functions. And according to the most recent maintenance reports, the automated systems are detecting those anomalies more frequently now, every week instead of every month, as if whatever lives there is becoming more active, more bold. The Coast Guard maintains that Widow's Point is perfectly safe, that all the disappearances have rational explanations, that the creature sightings are misidentifications, but they also maintain a permanent exclusion zone around the island, no unauthorized access, no exceptions, and they've never sent another human keeper. They know. They've always known. Thomas Merrick wanted solitude. He wanted to be alone with his thoughts, away from the world. He got his wish. He's never been more alone. If this story sent chills down your spine, make sure you're subscribed, because we explore the darkest corners of true horror every single week. Did you make it to the end? Prove it by typing "Widow's Point" in the comments below. And tell me, would you ever accept a job as a lighthouse keeper? Why or why not? Check out the playlist on your screen for more terrifying true stories. Until next time, remember, some mysteries are better left unsolved, some places are better left unvisited, and some things are better left unwatched. Stay safe out there.